I had to have a job. I'd like a job with no prospects.
Really?
Yes, I'd like to have a job with absolutely no prospects. I mean, like a lock keeper. You know, you can't run 2 locks. A mindless, repetitive job. I'd like to sweep an airport.
Well, look at this.
Floor in Baghdad with just sand. You're just pushing the sand away and it's always coming back again. Or a ferryman, you know.
How many ferries can you take
Just
across
one.
at once?
Because you've got no prospects that way.
Is that really your dream?
That's my dream. I have so many responsibilities here that I would just like to live in a treehouse and have a job with no prospects.
That would be it?
That would be it.
How big a house would be okay for you?
Tiny.
How tiny? Like
tiny.
Shoebox tiny?
So you couldn't even swing a mouse in it. I mean, really small. I'd like to live in a small space again.
But I think Perry thinks small.
Small, yes.
Tiny.
Yeah, he can afford to.
Is it true what Ian told me? You once walked to London?
I did. Yes, I walked to London once, about 4 years ago. I just walked out the door and I walked to London, non-stop.
Did something happen in the house that made you just...
No, I'd often thought about... You know, you see documentaries of refugees streaming across Europe.
Yeah, but they're running from something.
They're running from something. And I just thought, well, I wonder if I could. I suppose I could just have to go. I had 20 minutes' notice I had to go. Could I walk 300 miles? And I did.
How many days did it take you?
25 walking days. I was walking along and I heard this little horse and cart coming along behind me. Clip-clop, clip-clop, clip-clop. And a gypsy went past, and he had 2 women sitting on the back with a tiny little newborn baby between them. And as he went past, he looked down at me and he said, "Keep going, brother." And when you're walking, you have a stride and a rhythm, and you don't break it. So I acknowledged him with one nod. And 50 yards up the road, he stopped, and he got off the car, and he came across to me, and he put 50 pence in my hand. And he said, "I've been your way, brother." And it was the most fraternal, non-patronising gesture I've ever witnessed. It happened to me.
Should have hit him for a pound.
Well, I couldn't tell him I had a credit card in my pocket. You know, it would have spoiled everything. But it was just the way he said, "I've been your way, brother."
That's great.
You should try that walking bit.
No, I don't even walk across the street to go shopping.
No,
I get a taxi.
It's the only thing I learned to do at Eton, was to tell lies and how to cross the road. Because there was a really busy high street at Eton, really busy. And you had to cross it 10 times a day or you got thrashed. And you learn how to cross the road. And I could do it now.
You got thrashed if you didn't cross the road?
Yes. Beaten, caned.
You don't call this place sick at all, do you?
No.
That's
No.
your idea of a good
Times
time.
have changed. They don't thrash them anymore.
Maybe a lot of people didn't want to cross the road because they liked the thrashing
The
bit.
whole time I was there, only one person got run over.
Wait, you got thrashed if you crossed the road or if you didn't?
If you were late.
Either one, they didn't
way.
care. That's the English public school system in a nutshell. It is a perverted society, isn't it? Even you know that, Perry.
No, nonsense, nonsense.
What do you do here for entertainment?
Sometimes I make my own. I've used to put on great big festivals. Yeah. And out in the park and around the grounds there would be 15, 20 stages, all different kinds of things going on, all different kinds of entertainment, theatre, politics, the strangest acts, very strange people doing very strange things. One of the most curious ones was a man who had drilled a hole in his head. And his wife did it a few months later. And she did it on television. Trepanning, it's called.
And what does that entail?
You get a brace and bit and you twist and shout, you know.
And they did it in front of a crowd?
They did it in front of a camera.
Right.
And they film themselves and they proselytize about it, that it changes their way of life and everything.
Well, they're dead. I mean, so they're...
No, they're not. They're alive and kicking. And they function civilized jobs.
What was the point of putting holes in their skulls?
Cosmic.
They feel that...
Cosmic?
It was a cosmic
there's nothing to do with
reason.
that. There's a physical thing with the cranium that when you take this disc
We're going to
of
have a
bone
fight
out,
on camera.
which Joey wears around his neck, it's about the size of that coin. He has this piece of his skull there. And it releases a pressure in the head, more blood gets into the brain, more connections are made, and you are higher. That's oversimplifying it.
Did it work in theory then once he made the hole in his head? Was he higher or was he
I don't know.
out?
I mean, he's always been the same. He's a perfectly normal guy. He's normal before and he's normal after. Except when he starts talking about this subject.
What does he do now?
He has a business.
He carries pencils for a living.
Yes.
What's he do now?
He runs a gallery in London. And,
Called the what?
the pigeonhole, because he has a pet pigeon who's also trepanned.
No, he put a
Yes.
hole in the skull of the pigeon?
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. You could wear these people as a charm bracelet.
It's pretty surprising.
This is good. This is a creative conversation.
It is, I
Yes.
think. I'm glad we all met tonight.
See this. Yeah.
And where are you off to tomorrow?
You tell me.
Well, depends what you want to do.
Give me somebody interesting.
Well, there's Lenkiewicz. Robert Lenkiewicz is an interesting bloke.
Who is he?
He's a painter in Plymouth. He doesn't consider himself as an artist.
Right.
He doesn't sell his canvases to anybody. And he paints hundreds a year, hundreds and hundreds of canvases, and he never sells anything. And he survives on patrons. I was one of his early ones. And since then, he's picked up a hell of a lot of them now. And they support him, and he lives frugally. He's an amazing man.
All right. I'll check him out.
Yeah.
Folks in Plymouth have never known what to expect from painter Robert Lenkiewicz. Take the so-called Diogenes affair. A few years ago, Robert Lenkiewicz stuffed a dead, derelict pal, nicknamed Diogenes, and secreted him away instead of giving him a nice, decent burial. He admits to siring at least 19 children with a variety of bedmates. Staying with one woman is no more realistic than having one meal, one decor, one set of clothes, says Lenkiewicz. What a guy. Mr. Lenkiewicz? Hello? Mr. Lenkiewicz? Mr. Lenkiewicz? Hello? Mr. Lenkiewicz? Mr. Lenkiewicz? Hello? Mr. Lenkiewicz? Hello? We're here. Are you Robert? Hello? Hello?
I'll just speak.
Okay. Can I ask you something, Robert? I heard that you had your own funeral to see what they'd say about you when you died.
It had nothing to do with what they would say, not at all.
Well, what?
It was,
You said you had an
Yes.
obituary in the paper?
I asked my brother in London to put an obituary in the newspaper, and the claim was that I was dead. I then hid away somewhere and waited to see what would happen. But I had a book of notes. I couldn't know what it was like to be dead. I could only know what it was like to be thought dead. So that really did mean that just about everybody had to think I was dead.
Right.
And again, very, very interesting. I remember doing a large self-portrait at the time, and the notebook was quite interesting.
Did you have a funeral for yourself?
No, because after a few days, the absence of the body became a technical difficulty, and the police got involved, and then there were searches all the way.
You could have given yourself a
Different
reward
streets
for
and so on.
finding you. You're not thinking Jewish, Robert.
I could have done, but I think there were enough people phoning through saying that I'd been seen alive.
Why are you so interested in death?
There have been 18 projects, only one of which been on death. There was a project on vacancy, there was a project on old age, there was a project on mental handicap, and each time I do the projects, it's assumed that I'm somehow obsessed with that theme.
Right.
There have been 18 of them, and there are more and more and more. It just goes on. I don't think I'm that interested in sex. It appears that I am. I'm
You have
interested
a lot
in,
of women.
I'm interested in all women. I don't mind whether they're attractive or not, old, young, short, tall, fat, thin.
Seriously?
Really, it makes no difference to me anymore. I'm a long way past types. It's a type of fascism to assume that only a certain type would suit you. It's naivety and ignorance. All women are wonderful. They're lovely. I'm interested in studying the whole process of human relationships and why we think we are attracted to a human being and what actually goes on when we are attracted. But above all, when we become addicted to the person, when we, if you like, experience and use them as a drug, why do we relate this to the concept of love? Why do we think that we love a person? It's a very, very small package to be attracted to somebody. Nice mouth, shape of breast, sound of orgasm, half a dozen paperbacks that you've read that they've read. You know, it doesn't take very much. It's a small package. Oh, you knew my grandfather's sister. Fancy that, and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember the yellow door in Fordwich Road, don't you? And all nonsense, piffle.
So that puts people together, these little hooks.
Yes. All kinds of... Gossip is the glue that sticks society together, and it renders things significant which aren't. It's one's whole disposition to life that makes it feel a situation significant. And any relationship is interesting. Any. Little children, right through to the elderly, right across the board. Fidelity is completely unthinkable. If there were 1,000 women lined up here now, or 1,000 men, it would be reasonable to entertain the notion that you'd be attracted to one of them. And that would mean that in relation to the present population, not all those that have died in the past, not all those yet to be born long after you're dead, just in relation to the present population, if you only fancy 1 in 1,000 men, you're at this moment profoundly attracted to 13.5 million men. As a result of a sneeze on the 28 bus to Kilburn High Road, you bump into one of them, make an extraordinary fuss, instantly excluding all the other equally valid 13.5 million possibilities.
So were you trying to get through that line?
What I'm interested in is to...
Use the phone book.
is to point out, to suggest that absolutely everybody is really interesting, fascinating. It's all a question of one's own personal capacity.
1003, con queste contadine, cameriere cittadine, con contesse, baronesse, marchesine, principesse, e con donne d'ogni grado, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età, ogni forma, d'ogni età, ogni forma, d'ogni età.
Where's your bedroom? Where do you sleep?
It's into here.
So what? How often do you end up in this place?
Well, it's a storeroom, and its greatest nostalgia from my point of view is that it contains early work, very little of which survived, because an irate landlady destroyed everything of mine when I was about 20 and burnt the whole lot.
What did you do to her?
I had a relationship with a nun, and she was quite a committed Irish Catholic. And somehow it had got to her, and so I went back and the whole room had been emptied out and everything destroyed. So, retribution.
So she was angry about the nun? How'd the nun feel?
I think the nun was well disposed to both theologies.
I'd just like to see what a man keeps under his pillow.
I see, no, it's just...
Is this a piece of art or some kitchen roll?
No, it's entirely practical. It's entirely practical, but absolutely indispensable.
So how many women at a time would be keeping?
It can be up to 40 or 50 situations.
40 or 50 women at the same time?
Yes.
Now, when you make your associations with women, you hand them a book?
Yes, the books could be rather like this one over there.
So pretty much it's pretty clean cut, like they know relationships on the cards if they're handed this thing.
Well, there's some truth in that, that's right. Or they know that I would be interested. Say, one girl, and she will start writing things and trying. These are people who've never painted or drawn.
Right.
So they'll start trying to articulate a feeling or a sensation, you see.
Mr. Leibowitz, I am falling in love with you. How could it be so different? Oh, this one really likes you.
To some degree. But what is really happening is that she's liking herself. She's just finding herself more interesting. And that's what happens. This is a very startling illustration there of a particular sensation. That's her actual body, you see.
Yeah, I got that, Robert. I'm no fool to imagery.
Right.
I got that one.
Sometimes I'll do a diagram in it myself.
And when the relationship's over, did you take back the book?
Relationships aren't over, but the books are always mine. That is clearly understood.
Really?
Books are mine. They're for my sort of collection. Definitely mine.
So what do the women get out of it?
I think that they find the whole experience interesting. They suddenly realize that they are far more interesting to themselves than they thought they were, and that they learn somehow to feel that life is significant, and it's not through me.
What an
Nothing to do
idea.
with it.
What an idea, giving people books. You know, it's so clear. So many men I would like to give a book to, but, you know, not in their hands. I read you had this corpse hidden somewhere called Diogenes.
There was an understanding with him that when he died, I could have the body, and I'd had a similar understanding with other people, but and since. But if they don't die conveniently or appropriately, you can't get there first.
Right.
But I did in the case of Diogenes. Took the body away.
Where did he die?
He died in a hospital here in Plymouth, at Freedom Fields.
But he's holding up okay?
The body is in perfect condition.
Is it functional? Do you use him as something?
I like collecting unusual artifacts, particularly items that are thought-provoking. And I would have thought that nothing was more thought-provoking than the body of a human being that you had been close with.
Did you have him as a conversation piece on your coffee table?
Nothing like it. No, I haven't shown him to anyone.
Where is he?
He's in the vicinity, and the idea of a corpse, the idea of memento mori, remembering that you will die. After all, few things humanize more than to remember every day that you will die. And it's not depressing. You don't have to pressurize other people with it. But obviously, I wake up every morning, I think, my goodness, I am still alive. Marvelous.
Tagliameli una mattina, una decina devi aumentar. Tagliameli una vicina devi aumentar. Certo mi piazza qualche ragazza tengo quella per camminar. Tagliameli una mattina, una decina devi aumentar. Senza curarmi nella sia, via, la fare malar. Come mattina, una decina devi aumentare, una decina devi aumentare, una decina devi aumentare, devi aumentare, devi aumentare, devi aumentare.
Come on, we're off the air. Well, just tell me where Diogenes is.
No, I have to be discreet.
Publishing empire with the aim of selling copies of his work. The artist says he only wished he'd thought of it sooner.
Kathy Sayers had a preview of the print chosen to launch the new venture.
The painting, which took many a midnight hour to complete. It's part of R.O.LENKIEWICZ's theme, Painter with Women, observations on the theme of the double. One of 20 large projects the artist has focused on.
I posed for the painting over a period of a few months, and it was probably one of the most difficult paintings that I'd posed for at the time, because the sittings went on really late at night. We were often posing till about 2 in the morning. I can't move. And it was really, really painful having to sit leaning forward on my elbows for all that time. But it was worth it in the end, I think.
This is the first picture of many to be printed as part of the new publishing company, Fisher Mackenzie. The silkscreen is yours for £450.
Some of it will be for profit and gain. The gain being that everything can proceed. I don't have the energy that I had years ago. I worked on a huge and prolific scale. We're talking about 10,000 paintings. And so I have to be sensible, reserve some of that energy. And this is a very effective way of doing it.
Certainly R.O.LENKIEWICZ is one of the most colourful characters in Plymouth. His past of faking his own death and embalming the body of the tramp Diogenes is legend in the city. He's recently had to scale down a hectic painting schedule due to ill health and is currently awaiting a heart transplant.
I went to Harefield Hospital recently in preparation for a new heart. And they give you some witch's brew, digitalis or foxglove or something. And I take a tiny morsel of it and I'm suddenly energized and I'm 40 again. But I know it's illusory. A new heart has to come. And I'm hoping it'll be a rugged rugby player, 25 years old, with 100-year-old parents.
The next print run has already been earmarked as a set of self-portraits. Proceeds will be divided between the artist and 2 charities, one for head injury victims called Headway and the other in memory of Plymouth cerebral palsy victim Mark Anthony.